Is Kevin Federline Playing with Fire the worst album ever? Not by a long shot. You want to know what the worst album ever is? It's Farrah Abraham, My Teenage Dream Ended. If you were born past the year 2000, you might not know who this guy even is. Man, I barely know who this guy even is, and I was born in the late 90s. So he's basically a male gold digger, a baby daddy, and the only reason why people even care about this guy, besides him being a garbage rapper, is because he busted a nut inside Britney Spears and had at least one kid, maybe even more kids with her. This dude gets a big head because the biggest pop star at the time is going out with them and was married to him at one point. And then he thinks, oh man, I'm on top of the world. I can do anything. I'm a superstar. If you wanted an alternate title for this album instead of Playing with Fire, they should have just called it God Complex. Because man, is this dude delusional. I look it up on Google. It says this: a God complex is an unshakable belief characterized by consistently inflated feelings of personal ability, privilege, or infidelity. That's Kevin Federline in a nutshell. The opening song on this album, The World Is Mine, that title is just laughable in itself considering his claim to fame. You're a gold digger, and you're saying the world is yours? So the first verse is kind of laughable. His flow isn't that bad, but it's laughable because he's acting like he worked so hard to get where he is today when all he did was just finesse Britney Spears into having unprotected sex with them. When the hook is about to start, that's when disaster starts.
Be damned if I ever gave a fuck what y'all think on top. Never get ranked, had y'all ranked from where I'm from to the Caribbean Sea. The world is mine, everything belonged to me.
The flow, I think, in their minds sounded like, ooh, yeah, this is smooth. No. This sounds like she's holding on to the back of like a truck. You know, and it's just swerving all over the desert or some shit. Like her feet are just dangling off the back of this truck. Like, my mood in this bitch. Like, it's not good.
This is how I feel about his rapping on the hook. Go figure. It was for a Jake Paul song when he made those comments in that clip I just showed. And the funny thing is that in the comment section of the Kevin Federline album video, yeah, because someone actually posted the whole album into YouTube. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but somebody said he's the 2000s Jake Paul. I've dissed Jake Paul 2 times, but this is where I have to be positive towards him just for now. But him compared to Kevin Federline, Jake Paul is way better than Kevin Federline, because I have to admit, there are a couple of songs that I do like from Jake Paul. His most recent songs, because they have ghostwriters on it, but still, they're still better than anything Kevin Federline's done. And on the second verse of The World Is Mine, the song just gets worse every second that goes by on it. He says, to open the verse, create my own style, I ain't never been a bad guy. Tell the media I'm really not a bad guy. They could try to make me a victim of their own plots, because people like to see you dead when you're on top. When you're on top, the only thing you're on top of is Britney Spears when you're having sex. Kevin Federline, the only thing they want dead from you is your rap career. They don't want you dead. You're not that important. I think people at worst are kind of aggravated that you somehow got famous for doing nothing just because of who you're associated with. And in the first line of this second verse, create your own style? From what I was hearing other people say about this album, people feel you were ripping off Eminem. And there was some comment I saw, I'm paraphrasing when I say this, but they said, it sounds like an out-of-touch dad who knows nothing about hip-hop trying to imitate Eminem. And then, in my opinion, the song A League of My Own, The first verse, especially on that song, it feels like a ripoff on the flow of that 50 and the Game song, This Is How We Do. This line on the second verse is hilarious considering what's happened ever since that. Kev sucks, why don't he retire? Yeah, I guess you listened to what the people said because you never released another album after that disaster. Mind you, this is all on the same verse. Then he says about how one snap of the finger, the floor is where you're laying. So then he's trying to act like some Godfather dude. Kevin, you do not have mob ties. I know Drake made the song Mob Ties, and I don't believe him either, but at least Drake gets way more believable since he is on top of the game. Something that Kevin Federline claims he was in 2006, but really wasn't. When musically it sounds bad, it sticks out more when Kevin Federline spits these delusional bars. And on the second song, America's Most Hated. You're America's Most Hated when Osama bin Laden and Saddam Hussein were still alive at that time. George Bush was the president. Those are three guys I can think of at the top of my head that Americans hated way more than you. Kevin, when it comes to most hated people in America, you are extremely low on the totem pole. I don't even think you'd be the billionth worst person in America. And the hook sounds so awful. I'm here now. I know y'all been waiting. America's Most Hated. Let's play his version and then my version of it back to back to see how accurate I am with that imitation.
I'm here now. I know y'all been waiting. America's Most Hated.
I'm here now. I know y'all been waiting. America's Most Hated. He sounds like a kid that's in that transition voice from their kid voice to what they're gonna sound like for the rest of their adult life. I could do a roast for each of these terrible songs, but that would be too long of a video. So I'm gonna pick out some notable garbage lines on these songs. On Snap, he says, when I snap my fingers, then your head's the target. Another wannabe mafioso line when he is not even about that though. Yeah, man. Kevin Federline, he's a real thug. The thug that gets money from Britney Spears having a child from him. That's real thug action right there. Yeah. And later on the song, he says, the rap game was locked until I broke the latch. On the hook of Lose Control, this is that hip-hop flavor mixed with a little bit of rock and roll. Just listen to the album. There is no elements of rock and roll. This dude is on something. Well, clearly because he talks about drinking a whole bunch on the album and smoking weed. And near the end of the first verse of Lose Control, don't hate because I'm a superstar and I married a superstar. You're not a superstar. Your girl is. It's kind of like what Drake said to Meek Mill.
Shut down my boss, bitches, wife, and niggas.
That's exactly Kevin Federline's situation. And if you think he didn't show his ego enough, it's even more on A League of My Own. He says this on the second verse of it. Keep it real, I kill like a lion can. Savage of the jungle all by myself. All them other artists, I'ma knock them off the shelf. And then he talks about how he's not the best, but he's in a league of his own. Isn't that kind of a contradiction? You say you're in a league of your own. That is saying you're the best. That I'm so good that no one's even near me, man. Yeah, Kevin Federline is right. He is in a league of his own. Of being a terrible rapper. Here comes the part where I actually compliment some things on this album. Because there was actually a few songs I did like. The best song by far is Privilege. And that is the one feature that was actually good. Bosko, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, makes that song. The hook is really good. I mean, for a Kevin Federline song, yeah. And he produces the instrumental, which has a nice groove to it. Kevin Federline doesn't have too much garbage when he's rapping. His flow is pretty decent, and the only real bad line was when he said it's going down like a fresh pair of panties. And another song I liked was, I don't know if I liked it or if it stands out more because it's not completely awful like some of the other songs. Caught It Up. And maybe it's because he actually is rapping about something in his life as opposed to making awful brags that he doesn't even back up. And it's about his relationship with Britney and the hook. He has the right approach to the hook. His tone on the hook sounds real somber. This is a rare moment where Kevin doesn't look like an egomaniac and is real with himself, especially on the second verse where he talks about he has thoughts of hitting Britney, but he would never do it. Domestic violence is awful, but I gotta give Kevin some props for admitting that though. It's a thought that a lot more guys have, but they will never want to admit to it. Then the last official song on the album, Kept On Talkin'. It is top 2 when it comes to instrumentals next to Privilege. And Kevin's rapping on it. That is by far his best rapper performance on the whole album. And I really like the sample that comes when Kevin ends his verses. I want to make a little note on the last song on the album, Middle Finger, which was a hidden track. And I can understand why it would be labeled as such, because this is just such an abomination. This is an embarrassment to rap music. Here I go again complimenting Jake Paul. His song is Everyday Bro. Compared to Middle Finger, it looks like one of the best songs in hip-hop history. Because at least when it's Everyday Bro, the instrumental is pretty nice. It's just that nobody on the song can actually rap. On Middle Finger, nothing about it is good. Just listen to this snippet of it.
Put your middle fingers up if you really don't give a fuck. Holla at yourself, bitch. No, you wanna get 'em up. Middle fingers up if you really don't give a fuck. Holla at yourself, bitch. You know you wanna get 'em what?
Second verse of Middle Finger, he opens it off by saying, like Jesus in every way, I get crucified and slayed. Kanye said a line similar to that. But at least with Kanye, he is one of the biggest hip-hop artists of all time. He is one of only 3 hip-hop artists that are billionaires. So he has the right to talk like that. Not Kevin Federline. I wouldn't be surprised if Jesus resurrects and then smacks Kevin Federline for saying that nonsense. Final thoughts. My question is, what if Kevin Federline got famous in the 2010s and now early 2020s? And I think he'd be way more popular if everything that happened to him was in this era as opposed to the 2000s. Because look at TikTok. How do these people get famous? Especially that one girl, Bella Porch. All she has is a cute face. That's it. She's literally doing nothing. So I'm going to be giving Playing With Fire a 2.7 out of 10. If someone were to say, I was born in the wrong generation, my response to them most likely would be, stop it, because you have weak reasoning for why you even say that. But if Kevin Federline were to have said that, I would have to completely agree with them because he would be much more profitable in the 2010s and early 2020s. Kevin Federline definitely wishes he was a Gen Zer like I am.